Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to be covering something which I think is extremely important. So we're going to be covering how Israel influences state and local elections. So as many of you guys know, if you've been following the news recently, Zoran Mamdani in the Democratic primary, they made pretty much all the candidates on the stage pretty much pledge allegiance to Israel. They said, where are you going to go first? Obviously, they were asking a leading question. Every single candidate up there said Israel or Israel and Ukraine. So except Zoran Mamdani. Israel has a lot of influence, not just in places like New York with a huge Jewish population, but also in a lot of other cities and states. So even in alternative media, most of the time when we talk about Israeli influence, we're focused on the Congress and Senate. And for good reason, because this is where the majority of AIPAC or Jewish Democratic Council of America money is going to. But in a lot of cases, Israel is also influencing state and local elections for very dubious reasons. So I'm going to be covering the 2026 Arizona gubernatorial election as an example because I live in Arizona, so it's something I know about and something that's very pertinent to me as a citizen of Arizona, especially just turned 18, and I'll be able to vote in this upcoming election. This will actually be the very first election I'll be able to vote in, which is why it matters so much to me and why I want to have all the information that I need about all the candidates before making my vote. So starting off on the Democratic side, we have Katie Hobbs. She's pretty much going to win. She's the incumbent. There's not really any other challengers. Everyone else who could challenge her, who's a prominent Democrat in the state, they are running for re-election. So unless a representative wants to come into the race and challenge Katie Hobbs, which I don't think is going to happen, she will be the nominee of the Democrats. Now, as you can see right here, Katie Hobbs, she is just openly supported by the Israel lobby. She's endorsed by the Jewish Democratic Council of America. So on Twitter too, if you just check her Twitter, she'll talk about how she's pro-Israel pretty openly. So looking at the Republican side, if we look at the Republican side, we'll see Andy Biggs and David Schweikert. And so if we go to track AIPAC, you can both see that they take a ton of money from the Israel lobby. And so clearly they have a pro-Israel position. Now, Karen Taylor Robson, I did a little bit of research and she's also pro-Israel. She's made this clear on Twitter. So pretty much all the major candidates on the Republican side, obviously Andy Biggs received the Trump endorsement with Karen Taylor Robson. So they're the two front runners right now. David Schweikart isn't doing too good in the polls. Karen Taylor Robson has some base of support, but Andy Biggs is really the one who I think is going to win. And so all of the candidates pretty much on the Republican side, all the candidates on the Democratic side are pro-Israel. So some of you guys might be thinking, so what if a politician who I'm voting for to be governor of my state receives money from Israel? Because obviously the governor of Arizona isn't going to be able to declare any wars. They're not going to be able to do a whole lot when it comes to foreign policy, pretty much nothing. But a lot of the times, what a lot of people don't understand is how much control Israel actually has over individual states. So one example of this is a bill that was actually recently in the House of Representatives. Thankfully, it was vetoed. So essentially what this bill does is it punishes public school teachers, higher education institutions, faculty members, the state and state agencies regarding the teaching or promoting of anti-Semitic conduct, in air quotes, because we'll talk about later why this is not what this bill does at all, and it details civil liability and discipline procedures for violations of this prohibition. So to put it simply, and not to get into any of the jargon regarding the bill, what it does is it punishes teachers in public schools and at universities which are funded by the state. It punishes them if they teach anti-Semitic, again, anti-Semitic in air quotes, content. Now, how do they define anti-Semitism? What you'll see in a lot of bills, not just at the state level, but you'll also see this in Congress and in the Senate, is that a lot of the times American politicians, they rely on the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance's definition of anti-Semitism. So let's go over here and look at that, because their definition is obviously very important if that's what our law is going to be based on. So they have a pretty simple definition of anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism is a certain perception of Jews, which may be expressed as hatred towards Jews. So let's just go down through some of what they describe as hatred towards Jews and talk about why this could be extremely discouraging for free speech rights. So let's go through some of the things that the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance considers anti-Semitic so we can determine how detrimental this will be to free speech. So immediately at the second bullet point, I see an issue. So again, obviously, if you're saying that, oh, all the Jews control the media, obviously that's wrong. But whenever you say that a Jewish individual who has Zionist leanings owns a big media platform, that's not anti-Semitic at all. As you'll see, CNN, Fox, a lot of these major media outlets definitely have Zionist leanings, which influences the content which is on their platform. So that's why you'll see a lot of pro-Israel media on a lot of these different platforms, is because their founders and a lot of their donors have Zionist leanings. Now, some of them are Christian Zionists, so they're not all Jewish, but to criticize a platform for having owners which have a Zionist viewpoint and push that through the media, that is not anti-Semitic at all, which is why this is so dangerous. And then another really important thing, a really shocking thing, is that the International Holocaust Remembrance Alliance says that accusing Jewish citizens of being more loyal to Israel more than the interests of their own nations. So again, it's not anti-Semitic to say that Randy Fine cares about Israel more than he does America. I mean, it's very clear. He said if Kamala Harris were to be elected, that he would move to Israel. So obviously he doesn't really care about what's best for America. He cares about what's best for Israel. That's not anti-Semitic at all. When you see certain politicians in America, you can see that a lot of the times they can't choose between America or Israel. There was a famous clip, I forgot the representative, but he essentially stated, I can't choose between Israel or America. That's like choosing between my wife or my daughter. Which obviously, if you're an elected official, you should choose America first every single time. You shouldn't have another country, and that goes for any nation. If there are people from Somalia, putting Somalia first. If there are people from Italy, putting Italy first. If there are people from Israel, putting Israel first. None of that's acceptable in my viewpoint. Now, right after that, denying the Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming that the existence of the state of Israel is a racist endeavor. So again, I don't like to call people racist. I think that it has a chilling effect on speech. But to point out that Israel ethnically cleansed a large group of people who were there for hundreds, if not thousands of years before the Israeli settlers came in, a lot of them with very small DNA traces to the land. To say that that's not racist, I think is wild. I mean, it's the most clear example of supremacism we probably see in the world today since the fall of apartheid in South Africa. In fact, Israeli apartheid is much worse, as Noam Chomsky pointed out. So applying double standards by requiring of a behavior not expected or demanded of any other democratic nation. So what does this really mean? Well, it means that because a lot of the mainstream media supports what America does in terror wars, where they violate a lot of civil liberties, where they kill a bunch of people, they're saying that because America and other countries have done this, that it's okay for Israel to do it. And it's not okay for any of these countries to violate civil liberties. It's not okay for us to go out and commit war crimes anywhere. But because other countries have done this, Israel tries to use that as justification for its own wrong behavior and say it's anti-Semitic to criticize them for that. Now, finally, they say that drawing comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis is anti-Semitic. So I don't understand how this could possibly be anti-Semitic. Simply pointing out that Israel is committing a genocide and Nazi Germany committed a genocide against Jews in the past, nothing about that statement is anti-Semitic. Nothing about that is hateful towards Jews. What it is an objective assessment of the situation right now in Palestine, which they want to silence people for and call anti-Semitic. So thankfully, Governor Hobbs vetoed the bill. I was very surprised about this. As we can see before, she does have Zionist leaning, so I was very surprised when she did. But thankfully she did, because for many different reasons, as we covered, it would apply to all critics of Israel. So the very last thing I'd like to cover on this topic is anti-BDS laws. So the BDS movement, what it pretty much does is it says that Israel should be divested from. So American businesses, the government, we should not be doing business with Israel. And so a lot of state legislators who have pro-Israel biases have had issues with this. So what Arizona passed and a lot of other states have passed is, if you look at the map right here, many other states have passed these similar laws. So what these laws do is it makes it so that the government can't enter into contracts with businesses that boycott the state of Israel. So if a private business boycotts the state of Israel and says we won't accept or do business with Israeli companies or do trade because of what Israel is doing on the world stage, then the government of Arizona cannot go and do a contract with that company over $100,000. Otherwise, they will be in violation of the law. And this is a huge issue for a couple of different reasons. The main foremost reason is that the government should do contracts with whatever company gets the best results to consumers. What is in the best interest of the consumers is not advocating any specific political ideology. It's getting the best bang for their buck. And so whenever our politicians, they make it so companies that boycott Israel, they can't have any contracts, that poses a huge issue. And secondly, if you were to boycott China, if you were to boycott Russia, there would be no issues here. It's just Israel. So if a company boycotts China or Russia, there's no penalty. But if they boycott Israel specifically, that's an issue. So it's a huge double standard. So again, I'll be following this election very closely. You can follow me on X for more coverage of this election, but this is some of the reasons why Israel likes to play in local and state elections. They like to target education. They like to make people indoctrinated to believe the lies that Israel says. They like to have them believe a Zionist standpoint from a very young age, so that when they grow up, when these kids get into power in the future, or when they become voters, they'll be able to vote consistently for pro-Israel politicians. And on top of that, they like to be able to discourage companies from adopting BDS and boycotting and divesting from Israel, which a lot of companies did for South Africa, which is why the movement was so successful. That's what it's based upon. So thank you for watching this video. If you want similar videos like this, hit the subscribe button, follow me on Twitter. Thanks for watching. Leave a like or dislike on this video, whatever, it helps in the algorithm, both of them do. Argue with me in the comments if you want, and that's the end of the video.